Okay, so here is the array project that we had for homework. Um, Here at the top we have I put print salary ranges. It's a void function. It's got an array and it comes with the array size. In the main function, you have input array, which takes in the total sales, and then you have the wage array, which uh, stores the 9% plus the 200 for every employee that's entered. Then you have the array size equals 0 and I equals 0. Um, so we do a priming read here. Enter employee gross sales. -1 is the sentinel, so if you enter -1, it ends the prompting. As long as it's not -1, it's going to run into this loop. So in the wage array, we're going to store this formula here, 200 plus the input array I, which is the number that we just entered, which is the sales. So sales, the first entry of sales, times 9 divided by 100. Now we're dealing with integers, so in order to do 9%, we do 9 divided by 100 instead of multiplying times 0.09. We actually just do 9 divided by 100, same thing as 9%. So it's 200 plus the total sales for this iteration, or this value of this array, times 9%. And then you print underneath the data entry, you print the value that's been calculated. Then you increase the size of the array, since we've increased the array size, and we also increase the I value as we're counting that for the loop. Okay, so, and we have 100 values for each array to work with, so we can't go over 100 entries. That's the limitation for this program. And then we print we ask for the next value of sales for an employee, and if they enter -1, it exits the loop and then goes down here and calls this function to count out of all the employees, how many fall in which salary category, and then prints it down here. Pretty. It's nice and formatted. So basically, as you go through this, we'll go ahead and run it. So we'll do $2,000 for the first one. You can see it prints. That's the wage. That's $200. That's this equation right here. The 200 plus the. So this is 2,000 input array I, which is input array 0, times 2,000 times 9%, which is what, $180. So $180 plus 200 gives you 380. So you just keep on going. So 1,500, 2,700, 5,000, 19,000, 8,000, and then we hit. Let's put in -1 for the sentinel value, and then as you can see, it prints out. Let me grab this so you can see it. It prints out this nicely formatted list table, and for each salary range, it tells you how many employees fall in that salary range. Now these ranges here, the way that it's tallied up, if you look in the code here and under range array, so like if it comes down here and the salary is greater than 1,000, the total wage, then it increments the eighth value. The eighth position of the array. So it's going to count. If let's say you had 6 people that had $1,500 wages, it's going to increment this 6 times. So then when it finally prints out here, you'll see 6 down here. So yeah, so it's just incrementing and then assigning the range for that position in the range array. So just to quickly go, I'm going to go over this one more time. We have print salary ranges. This is our function, and you have an array that you're passing, and you have a size of the array that you're passing. The array size is 100, but obviously we may not store 100 values. We may store far less than that. And if we do, we want to know how many to cycle through, so that we only cycle through the values that exist, because it's not necessary to cycle through all the values. So here you have declared input array 100 positions, wage array 100 positions, and we're initializing all 100 values for each array to 0. And then here you have the array size is 0, and you have int I equals 0. So enter employee gross sales -1 to end goes into the input array. So that's the first input, is input array 0. Now while that's not -1, it's going to go down here, wage array I equals, and then it's going to store the associated wage for that input. So the wage calculates as 200 plus total sales times 9%. So 9% times the total sales plus 200. And it does the order of operations here. So it'll calculate this section first and then add 200 to what it calculates, multiplication and times. And again, we're doing 9 divided by 100 for 9% because we're not dealing with floats, we're dealing with integers. We can't do 0.09. And then it's going to print out the wage right underneath the input, and it's going to keep doing that as you enter in more and more inputs, and it's going to increment the array size, because every time you enter a value, we're telling the computer that the array is one more larger every time you enter a value, 1, 2, 3, 4 values, 5, etc. And then we're also incrementing I, so that we can run through this input array every time we enter a value. So that's that. So then once -1 is entered, it pops out of this loop, and we call on this function print salary ranges, and we're passing this array by reference. In other words, we're not actually, like, if you imagine if the array had 100 values in it, you don't want to pass, it doesn't make sense to be passing around this giant chunk of memory. You just want to pass the reference, which is the address. Like, it tells the function where the array is located in memory. It also tells the function how big the array is, -1. And the reason that we're doing -1 is because since the arrays start at 0, and we're actually doing let's see. Okay, so we're going to go in here and we're going to create this range array 9 equals 0. And while the array size is greater than or equal to 0, in other words, it's gonna go through, it's gonna iterate, counting up how many is in each range for how big the array is. So if the array size is, if there's 60 values entered, it's going to run through this whole thing 60 times and increment, how many fall in each category. Kind of like Plinko. It's just the pucks are falling in each category for each one. And then at the end, when it's all done, and keep in mind here, so array size. The reason it's decrementing array size is because it's not starting at 0, it's starting up. So we're counting down instead of counting up. We're not starting at 0, we're starting at the size of the array. So if we start at 60, it's going to start with 60, go down here 59, 58, 57, and then finally once it reaches -1, it'll pop out because it says greater than or equal to 0. So once it hits -1, it's going to pop out of this array. I'm sorry, of this loop, and then finally print everything out. Okay, I've talked too much. I hope you guys understand this better. I know I did my best to explain. If you have any questions, comment on the video below or contact me. Thanks.